For decades, the United States was not only the world's largest economy and most powerful military force, it also possessed something far more valuable: trust. America built alliances. America protected global trade routes. America promoted democracy. America led international institutions. Whether people agreed with every decision made in Washington or not, there was a widespread belief that the United States would remain committed to the international order it helped create after World War II. But that belief is beginning to fade. Today, surveys across Europe, Asia, and even North America reveal growing skepticism toward the United States. In many countries, confidence in American leadership has fallen sharply. Allies who once viewed Washington as the cornerstone of global stability are increasingly asking a difficult question: can America still be trusted? And for many around the world, the answer is becoming less certain. This transformation did not happen overnight. It was not caused by a single speech, election, or crisis. However, many analysts believe one political figure accelerated the process dramatically: Donald Trump. This story is not simply about whether people support or oppose Trump. It is about something much bigger. It is about credibility. And credibility, once lost, is extremely difficult to rebuild. For generations, America's greatest strength was not its military or economic power. It was predictability. Countries invest billions of dollars and build long-term strategies based on trust and commitments. Governments sign defense treaties. Businesses establish global supply chains. Investors move capital across borders. All of these decisions depend on one crucial assumption: major powers will honor their commitments. For decades, the United States convinced the world that it was a reliable partner. Then came the slogan, "America First." Trump's supporters saw it as common sense. They argued that previous administrations had sacrificed American interests for global responsibilities. They believed allies were taking advantage of the United States. They believed foreign countries benefited while American workers paid the price. To many Americans, these arguments made sense. But outside the United States, the message sounded very different. To allies across Europe and Asia, America First often sounded like America only. The concern was not simply about policy disagreements. Every nation pursues its own interests. The deeper concern was whether America still viewed itself as the leader of a shared international system. That uncertainty began to change how many governments viewed Washington. For decades, NATO represented one of the strongest military alliances in modern history. Its core principle was simple: an attack on one member would be considered an attack on all. The power of that commitment came from the fact that nobody questioned it. Yet during Trump's presidency and political resurgence, repeated criticism of NATO created anxiety among America's closest allies. European leaders began asking questions they never expected to ask. What if the United States refuses to defend an ally? What if Washington decides collective security is no longer in its interest? What if future American presidents abandon previous commitments? Even if none of these scenarios ever happen, the damage is already done, because those doubts now exist. Trust is built on certainty. Once uncertainty enters the equation, trust begins to erode. The same pattern appeared in international trade. For decades, America was one of the strongest advocates of globalization and free markets. Then tariffs became a central pillar of U.S. policy. Trade disputes intensified. Agreements were challenged. Long-standing economic relationships suddenly seemed less secure. From Washington's perspective, tariffs were a negotiating tool designed to protect American interests. But from the perspective of many foreign governments, something else was happening. The rules appeared to be changing unexpectedly, and when the rules become unpredictable, confidence declines. Businesses hate uncertainty. Investors hate uncertainty. Governments hate uncertainty. The result was a growing perception that American policy could shift dramatically depending on domestic political circumstances. Perhaps the greatest damage came not from any single policy. It came from the perception that American foreign policy itself had become unstable. For much of the post-war era, there were differences between Republican and Democratic administrations. However, the overall direction of U.S. foreign policy remained relatively consistent. That consistency reassured allies. But recent years have created a different impression. One administration enters international agreements. The next administration withdraws from them. One administration strengthens alliances. The next questions their value. One administration pursues a strategy. The next reverses it entirely. For foreign governments, this creates a serious problem. How can you build a 20-year strategy around a country whose policies may change completely every 4 years? This concern has become especially visible in Europe. Increasingly, European leaders are talking about strategic autonomy. In simple terms, they want to reduce their dependence on the United States. Not because America has become weak, but because America has become less predictable. And unpredictability is the enemy of trust. The issue extends beyond Europe. Across Asia, governments are also adjusting to a world where American commitments appear less certain than before. Countries that once relied heavily on US leadership are diversifying their partnerships. They are strengthening regional alliances. They are investing more heavily in their own defense capabilities. They are creating alternative economic networks. This does not mean they have abandoned America. It means they are preparing for the possibility that America may no longer be as dependable as it once was. Perhaps the clearest evidence comes from international public opinion surveys. Recent polls show declining confidence in both Trump and American leadership across many advanced economies. In numerous countries, majorities express little confidence in Trump's ability to handle global affairs. Many respondents describe him as arrogant, dangerous, or difficult to trust. More importantly, negative views of Trump increasingly influence perceptions of the United States itself. That distinction matters. Historically, people often separated their opinions of an American president from their opinions of America. Today, that separation appears weaker. When political instability becomes a defining feature of a country, people begin associating that instability with the nation itself. And that is where credibility suffers its greatest damage. Because credibility is not about being liked. It is about being trusted. A country can be unpopular and still be trusted. A country can be controversial and still be trusted. But a country that appears inconsistent becomes much harder to trust. The consequences are already becoming visible. Countries are reconsidering defense arrangements. Businesses are diversifying supply chains. Investors are hedging against geopolitical risks. Governments are searching for alternatives. None of this means America is collapsing. Far from it. The United States remains the world's most powerful military force. It remains one of the most innovative economies on Earth. The US dollar remains the dominant global reserve currency. American universities remain among the world's best. Silicon Valley continues to shape the future of technology. In terms of raw power, America remains extraordinarily strong. But power and credibility are not the same thing. A nation can remain powerful while becoming less trusted. History has shown this many times. Empires often retain enormous strength long after their reputations begin to decline. The challenge is that credibility compounds. When trust increases, cooperation becomes easier. When trust declines, every future decision becomes more difficult. Allies become cautious. Partners become skeptical. Competitors become more confident. That is the challenge America faces today. The world is not necessarily turning against the United States. Rather, many countries are adapting to a new reality. They no longer assume America will always behave as it has in the past. That shift may seem subtle, but its consequences are profound. For decades, America benefited from a reputation that took generations to build. That reputation survived wars, financial crises, and political scandals. Yet credibility can be damaged much faster than it can be created. Whether Trump alone is responsible remains a matter of political debate. His supporters argue that he merely exposed problems that already existed. They claim America's allies became too dependent on US protection and too comfortable benefiting from American generosity. His critics argue that Trump accelerated a historic decline in confidence by making American commitments appear conditional and temporary. Regardless of which interpretation is correct, one reality is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The world's perception of America has changed. The world now sees a country that is more divided internally, more unpredictable externally, and less certain about its role in the international system. The question facing Washington is not whether America remains powerful, because it does. The real question is whether power alone is enough. Because in international politics, trust is often more valuable than military strength. Military power can deter enemies. Economic power can generate prosperity. But credibility creates influence. And influence is what allows nations to shape the future. For much of the last century, America possessed all three. Today, its power remains immense. Its wealth remains extraordinary. But its credibility is increasingly under scrutiny. And the world is watching closely. Because what happens next may determine not only America's future, but also the future of the global order itself. Because when the world stops trusting the leader, the entire system begins to change. Thank you for following this story. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it. For now, this is goodbye. Thank you for staying with Societale Stories.